recording. There we go. Okay. So, welcome to the first ever interview for the Intersectionality Project. Very exciting. So, to start it off, could you just introduce yourself, talk about like your interests, where you are in life right now?
Sure. So my name is Iris. I went to Crescent Valley High School, which is in Corvallis. But after graduating just a few months ago, my mom and I moved to San Luis, California. And now, in a few months, I'll be starting college at Stanford.
All right. So, were you born or in Corvallis, or did you grow up primarily in Corvallis, or did you grow up somewhere else?
Yeah, so I would say my childhood was pretty scattered. I was born in San Jose, California, which is in the Bay Area, and then I lived in Beijing from like 3 to 7-ish. So I actually went to elementary school in Beijing. And then I really moved to America, I guess, in second half of second grade. And that was a huge adjustment because at that point I just couldn't speak English at all because of how long I lived in Beijing for. And so I was in the ESL program and everything like that in Maryland, which is my first place that I really like lived in America. And then in fourth grade, I moved to Corvallis and started at Hoover. So yeah, and then I've been there ever since.
All right. So, how do you think that growing up in Corvallis shaped who you are today and how you view yourself?
Oh, this is a good question. So I think Corvallis is a super duper sheltered and nice little town. So the first like sheltered aspect I think made me I guess pretty, I would say, innocent in a sense compared to like other people I've met from other places. Like I just go in with the assumption that other people are going to have good intentions, but I find that a lot of my friends who grew up in like a city or something, they're more cautious of like, oh, what can their malintentions be? And they kind of think more from that like risk perspective. So I think also though, growing up in such a nice community made me um, more better able to take risks because I knew that, you know, if I fell flat on my face, like it's not going to be the end of the world. People aren't that mean. They're not going to make fun of me. So that allowed me to take a lot of risks, like starting a video pal program, which is really non-traditional, I would say. So I actually built that to be a pretty international program. And then I also played around with like self-publishing a book in high school, which was also pretty non-traditional. And I think if I went to like a larger public high school where there was a lot of drama or judging going on, I probably wouldn't have had the guts to do that.
Yeah, I have some questions about that book a little bit later on. How do you think that growing up in Corvallis impacted your ideas of, say, like femininity and womanhood?
Hmm, that's interesting. So I'm not sure how connected this would be for to like Corvallis. Um, but like Corvallis overall is a pretty liberal town. So I think having more liberal beliefs about like gender relations was possible because that I lived in Corvallis. So I think like gender inequality is actually pretty political as well. And depending on where you are on the political spectrum, you might think, you know, the gender pay gap is real or not real. And I think because I grew up in a community that is pretty accepting of the more, I guess it's like the more liberal ideas of, you know, like the gender gap being real and stuff, that allowed me to, um, I guess, take action on that side of the spectrum. But I'm also still trying to figure it out, like still reading more and always I'm always open to changing my opinions. So yeah.
I don't know how much you remember from Beijing and Maryland, but have you like observed any differences in this regard?
In like the gender regard. Yeah, for sure. So like the Asian culture is pretty um how do I put this in like a nice way? Like they're pretty gender like stereotypes like in terms of like genders. Like I mean, even with my own mom, like she's already pretty young. Like my grandparents are even more traditional than her, but like my mom, she sometimes says things like, "Oh, boys, you know, they're just doing boys things," and then she'll be like, "Oh, like girls aren't supposed to do that and stuff." So I think that part now kind of gets to me a little bit, just on like how the traditional Asian culture really like values like this is what a guy should do. Like I'm in a relationship and like I think my mom and I have very different ideas as to like what the guy is supposed to do. And I think I mean, I don't know if that like shaped me in any way. Maybe it made me more rebellious and like go the other way because I'm definitely like I don't agree with that culture.
Yeah, so did your mom grow up in China?
Yeah, she did. She didn't come to America until after like in her early 20s.
Okay. How do you think interactions with your peers have impacted your sense of self and or your ideas of femininity and womanhood?
I think my peers were quite empowering. So I think I grew up like in middle school and stuff with a pretty close group of girl friends, like a friend group. Um, and then I think like we were always trying to like be better at the boys, like because like you know how boys like they kind of have their own friend group in middle school because like in middle school, I don't know, people are like, oh, you can't hang out with the other gender. So like people's friend groups were pretty like just like of one gender, and I remember how we always wanted to like beat the boys at math and stuff. So I think that's like I maybe we didn't realize it at the time, but like I think traditionally girls think that they're not really that great at math, but I think because of my friend group, they really showed me that, you know, you can be better at the boys at math, and it all it really takes is just studying harder, not really what gender you are.
Yeah, I relate to that a bunch. The times tables, like did you ever do those sheets? I don't know. They might have been like an elementary school thing, but we would always have competitions of like who could finish the times tables. Yeah. Um,
That's funny.
yeah. In that same vein, what were your experiences like as a woman of color at a primarily white school and in a primarily white town?
Hmm. I would say most of my experiences of abnormality, like I don't know how to put it, because I think most of the time I feel pretty like fitted in, but there has been moments that I'm just like, what the heck is going on? Like in AP Computer Science senior year at Crescent Valley, I was the only girl in the class, and there were like 15 people, I want to say. Um, and I was just like, wait, what the heck? Why is there not another girl in here? And and also they just played video games a lot, and I don't know, I just felt like it was a really weird environment for me to be in because they're just like shouting, um, doing things I don't really understand. And then, yeah, I don't know, it was kind of a weird class dynamic. And then also, I went to the state competition for the National Economics Challenge, and there, Crescent Valley, so our team actually made it to like the finals, and I was also the only girl in that round, and I was like, what? So I think just those little moments, like where when you realize that you're like the only woman in the room, but then it like makes like I feel like that shouldn't really matter, but you feel it when it's like a dynamic that you just don't feel like you're welcomed in. I don't know, it's like really hard to put into words, but like just the virtue of being uh like a girl shouldn't really like make or break anything, but I think it's just that it's almost like they just do a lot like make a lot of jokes that you don't understand, or I don't know, it's just like the culture that's just not I don't know. Feel free to like ask follow-up
Yeah.
questions if I'm not really explaining myself well.
Yes, I do. Explain more about this economics challenge.
Sure. So I guess it was, so it's, well, like what part of it do you want me to talk more about?
So like what was like the structure of the event? Like was it competition? Was it just people having fun doing economics? I don't know. I don't know economics either, so.
Yeah, so it's like a nationwide thing. So it starts at like a local level where I think the first round is online and your team just does this like little quiz or test type of deal. And then if you score high enough, then you make it to the state competition. And so we were at the state competition and there were about, I want to say like 5, 6 schools. Um, and then at the state competition, it's almost like a trivia game where it's like 2 teams at a time. And oh, wait, no, that's only the final round. Okay, so I think at the state competition, when you start out, it was still like a test. So you did like these tests in different areas like microeconomics, macroeconomics. And I think there was one more. So there was like 3 tests that you took and then they score you. And then the highest scoring, the 2 teams that scored the highest went on to the finals where it was like a quiz bowl type of deal where there was a buzzer and you had to like hit the buzzer first to answer the question and stuff, and there were points involved. So yeah, so every team has 3 to 4 people, and our team, I think we were the only team with 3 people because it's like advantageous to have 4 because they only take the top 3 scoring people on your team. So if you have 4, it's like, okay, you'll probably like have a higher score. But we only had 3, and I remember just being in that final round because the other school had 4 people and we had 3 people, and both the people on my team they were guys, and then all 4 of their team members were guys, and I was the only girl there. So that was interesting. Um, and I don't know why I noticed it in that moment. Maybe it was like they were just like I think sometimes like when you go watch like a sports game, like guys, they just like act differently, like under pressure. Like they just show off like a lot of testosterone and like a huge I don't know like how to describe it. But it's just like so much overwhelming confidence that you're like, why are you so cocky right now? And it kind of makes you insecure in a way. So I think that's what I was feeling in the moment. And that's when I realized I was like the only girl, and that made me a little bit uncomfortable. Um, but yeah, and also I was just like really, I'm just like, why do they not have a girl on their team? You know, like why is it mostly guys signing up for this event?
Yeah. So what did was that gender ratio present in like basically all the other teams?
Yeah, I would say just in the room in general, it was definitely not 50-50. Um, there were definitely like other girls because I remember talking to a girl, but I think it was mostly guys.
Yeah, in terms of the people who organized the event also, like the moderators, um,
Oh my goodness, they were like all old men who had like white hair. It was actually ridiculous. Yeah, I remember this because all the judges were guys too. And we had the judge who like asked us questions. He was like literally like, yeah, he was really old. And like all of them were old.
yeah. So you are an intended economics major, correct?
Yeah, I'm thinking econ and CS, so that's like my intended. Yeah, so Stanford actually has this co-term program where you can do a master's and bachelor's. And
Wow.
usually it's like supposed to be 5 years, but I know like some people just do it in 4. So I'm trying to just I'm planning to do my bachelor's in econ and then do the co-term or like master's in CS. But basically what the co-term is that you kind of start your master's like when you're still an undergrad. So you kind of start like freshman, sophomore, building up like junior, senior year, and then you just graduate with 2 degrees.
Yeah, so I did a slight bit of stalking, I'm not gonna lie, on your YouTube channel, and I saw that
Okay.
it's great, by the way. Your videos are very high quality. But so you were saying that you took an economics class at OSU, which is the local university. Um,
Uh-huh.
what was that like? What was the gender balance like? What was your experience like?
Okay, so I actually took that class online, so I'm not really sure about the gender ratio. I'm pretty sure that one was probably pretty even. The instructor was a really, really nice woman. She was actually amazing. And I actually think the Daily Barometer interview with her or something, because they did an article on me, and I think they interviewed her, and it was like in the same article, and she said that she is like one of the few like female econ faculty, not only at OSU, but I think she said she started in like the 80s or something, and it's like always been that way.
That's pretty crazy.
So she'd actually be a good person to interview, I think.
Yeah, you should send me that article when we're done.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so what prompted you to write the book that you self-published, Gateway to American Economics?
Yeah, so after the econ challenge, I was just curious about why there's this gender um, this like the disproportionate like representation, and I was wondering if that's like actually a thing or it was just at that event. So I did some like googling and researching, and I stumbled across this research paper by like a Cornell professor on how like the most popular introductory economics book has a blue sports car on the front cover, and so that is a very implicit bias toward appealing to men. And I also ran across statistics like how only 30% of economics undergraduates nationwide are women. So that was pretty astonishing to me. And I felt like it wasn't really something people knew about. And so I thought maybe I would design like a gender neutral intro economics book to be more inclusive of girls who might be interested, you know? So that's kind of where that idea came about. And I was honestly kind of bored because it was the beginning of summer and I had like 1 to 2 weeks of spare time before I went to study abroad that summer. But before I left, it was kind of boring. So I just went on Canva, and I'm pretty sure we were working on like a project, like an end of year project with AP Lit on Canva, and I thought it was a really cool tool. So I just wanted to play around with it more. So I ultimately just typed up some basic econ information in a Google Doc, and then I pasted that into Canva and added some gender neutral designs to it and made it like a little introductory economics book that's, I would say, for middle schoolers or incoming high schoolers to just get to know the subject.
That's super cool. What sort of gender neutral designs did you put on there?
So I definitely did not have any like blue sports cars or anything. Maybe I'll just like kind of show you right now. Actually, I can just turn the camera on. Right, let's see. How do we do this? Okay. Like, all right. So this is like the cover. So I feel like it's pretty like gender neutral. And so it's not like really girly, it's not really like boysy. I don't know. Just like normal pictures. Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, those do look pretty gender neutral. I'd say you achieved your goal.
Yeah.
So, where did you study abroad?
I went to Taiwan. Okay, so I guess if you want me to talk more, I'll just like let me know if I'm rambling on too much.
Don't worry about it.
Okay, so I applied through a program. It's called the National Security Language Initiative through the U.S. Department of State. And so they basically have these like fully funded scholarships for high schoolers to study abroad. And it's either over the summer or for an entire year. So for like a gap year. So I applied to the summer program and they placed me in Taiwan. And it was honestly like the best summer program you can ever do, because it's like a free trip to Taiwan. You get to stay there. They give you like a stipend and you get to take classes at a local university, and just the best people. There were only 18 people in my cohort, so they came from all over the US, and it's just so cool to make those connections and still, just be friends with people outside of Corvallis, because it is pretty sheltered and kind of like a little bubble. So I think it was a great experience right before college to live outside of your house and outside of Corvallis, because that's what college is going to be like. And I think it really built my self-confidence, like knowing that I can be completely fine and happy living in a foreign country, or whatever you want to classify Taiwan as, but like living in a foreign place where I'm not 100% on the language, because by this point, like my Chinese is like falling. So it's actually really interesting, because I grew up like very fluent in Chinese and just couldn't speak English. But then as the longer I stayed in the US, the worse my Chinese became and the better my English got. So I really wanted to like reclaim the Chinese part of my heritage. And I know that, like, economically speaking, China is on the rise, and it's probably going to be an important social political state to interact with in the future. So I just really wanted to improve my Chinese. So the study abroad was a great way to do that. And yeah, so it just gave me a lot of confidence on what I could do.
Yeah, so do you plan on continuing to study the Chinese language?
Yeah, I do. And I actually need to take a placement test, like literally this weekend, to be able to take a Chinese class at Stanford. So I am planning on doing that.
So I know this is kind of far out, but what are your plans for after you graduate?
Oh, good question. So obviously none of this is like 100% set in stone, but I have some ideas as to what I would like to do. So I I would like to go into consulting, honestly, for 2 years, 3 years. And I'm looking at like McKinsey or Bain, and just the lifestyle of that, of like traveling and learning, like having a new project every few months to work on, and also the business aspect of it. I think it's going to be like a great learning experience. It's kind of going to be almost like another higher education. So I hope I can just maybe do like a couple years there to learn more about the business world. And then I might get an MBA. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty interested in business right now. And I'm also pretty interested in US China relations. So maybe moving to China or something to do work. That would honestly be really fun. But also I hope I could do that through consulting, because like with these consultants, they actually travel like a lot. And I think that's a really cool lifestyle to try for a few years. Other than that, I see myself like continuing to build a personal brand of some sort. So as you probably know, I started a YouTube channel, and like I have a website, and I'm doing some consulting calls, and it's been really fun for me. So I really like the aspect of doing like, I guess, like public speaking as well. So I'm actually going to be giving like some speeches and things at like these online conferences coming up later in the summer, and just like talking to you as well here. But I think I actually just find it really enjoyable. So maybe I'll keep on doing that somehow. But yeah, that's kind of the general overview.
Yeah, so what else are you going to be doing this summer? What are your plans before the school year starts?
Yeah, so this summer I'm working at a blockchain identity startup, and it's actually been like really cool. I've been learning a lot about the space. Didn't really know what blockchain identity was going in. And once again, like the team, it's actually ridiculous. Like the first startup I interned at, which was a Y Combinator startup. So YC is like the Harvard of startup incubators in like Silicon Valley. But like if you look at like their articles on like how they're trying to recruit for female founders in their program, it's actually pretty crazy. Like they're really trying, but they're still not like that successful. And the first YC backed startup I worked at, which was like in March, I worked from like March to April-ish. It was like 12 guys and me, And I don't know, just like in the team meetings, like I posted something on my Instagram story yesterday-ish. I think it's still up. But like I just felt like it was so hard to get a word out because everybody just keeps talking. And I don't know, it's just so hard. And then I didn't really vibe with the team there. And now I'm working at this blockchain identity startup. And again, it's all guys. But this team is like 7 people, six, 7-ish. And when I joined, I was the only girl, but now we have another intern as well, and she's also a girl. But yeah, it's also like a bunch of guys and have the same problem. Like we do, we do these like weekly happy hours where we just like talk about whatever for like an hour. And like I swear, like these guys, they just like go on and they like interrupt you. And I think like as I don't know, like I see the other intern, like she's not really like speaking up either. And I've been like really trying to work on just like speaking up, like interjecting and knowing that like that's okay. Like I just need to do that to make myself heard.
Yeah, do you have any tips for the aspiring female professionals out there on how you can do that?
Honestly, I think you have to develop like the don't give a shit attitude where you just have to let go of some of the maybe the mental models that you have. Like I think I still have it though. Like even when we were on the call, I was like, oh, let me know if I'm rambling too much. But I think like a lot of the guys on the team will just not do that. They would just ramble and not really care what you think. And I think as like a woman, you're kind of grown up with this like social or cultural stigma that like you need to please other people, you need to look pretty and not be not like raise conflicting opinions, because then you're not pleasing other people. So I think you just have to really actively work against that stereotype and what you grew up with, and don't apologize. Like I think so many girls that are like, oh sorry, but I have another question. Like don't be sorry that you have a question, like it's normal. So just don't apologize and just yeah, just do it. And if they somehow think that you're annoying to work with or you're bossy or whatever, then that's just not the right team for you. So if they fire you for that reason or something, then that's not your fault, and that's really important to know. Also, I have to go in 3 minutes. I have another call, but I would be happy to finish this maybe later tonight or tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, that was the end of my questions.
Okay,
Thank you,
awesome.
thank you so much for chatting with me. I'm going to stop the recording now.